The crisis. Victoria Chen stood at the floor-to-ceiling, windows of her corner office on the 47th floor, watching the sunset bleed across the Manhattan skyline, the view that once filled her with pride now felt like a cruel reminder of how far she had to fall. Her phone buzzed for the 100th time that day. Another board member, another journalist, another vulture circling the dying carcass of what was supposed to be her legacy. She silenced it without looking. In 72 hours, Chen Dynamics, the tech empire she'd built from nothing, would cease to exist. 15 years of 16-hour days, sacrificed relationships and ruthless decisions, all collapsing like a house of cards. And the most terrifying part? She had no idea how to stop it. Victoria had always been the smartest person in every room. At 25, she'd coded an algorithm that revolutionized data encryption. By 30, she'd secured $200 million in venture capital. By 38, Chen Dynamics employed over 8,000 people across 12 countries, and Victoria had graced the cover of Forbes, Time, and Fortune. Her success wasn't luck, it was precision, strategy, and an almost supernatural ability to see 3 moves ahead of everyone else. But 6 months ago, everything changed. A cybersecurity breach had exposed vulnerabilities in their core product. Customer trust evaporated overnight. Lawsuits multiplied like weeds. The board demanded answers, the media demanded blood, and Victoria's investors demanded their money back. She'd assembled a war room of the best. Consultants money could buy, crisis management experts, PR specialists, cybersecurity gurus with impressive pedigrees and even more impressive hourly rates. They generated reports, presentations, and strategic plans that filled 3-ring binders, stacked 2 feet high on her conference table. None of it worked. Every solution felt like a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. Restructure the company? They'd lose their competitive edge. Massive layoffs? The talent exodus would finish what the breach started. Sell to a competitor? She'd rather drive her Tesla off the Brooklyn Bridge. Victoria had listened to every expert, implemented every recommendation, and watched helplessly as the ship continued to sink. Now, with only 3 days until the board's vote to liquidate the company, she'd sent everyone home. The office was finally quiet. Just the hum of the HVAC system and the distant sound of a vacuum cleaner somewhere down the hall. Victoria pressed her forehead against the cool glass, fighting back tears she'd been holding for months. She wasn't supposed to cry. CEOs didn't cry. Billionaires didn't cry. But alone in her office with her empire crumbling, she felt like a fraud who'd been playing dress-up in her mother's clothes. And everyone was about to notice. A gentle knock interrupted her spiral. Victoria wiped her eyes quickly and turned, expecting her assistant had forgotten something. Instead, she saw Marcus Thompson, the night janitor, standing uncertainly in her doorway. He was in his 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. He wore the standard gray maintenance uniform and held his cleaning cart with one hand. The other raised in apologetic greeting. "I'm sorry, Miss Chen. I didn't know anyone was still here. I can come back later." Victoria almost told him to leave. She wanted to be alone with her misery, but something in his gentle demeanor made her pause. Marcus had worked at Chen Dynamics for 3 years, always arriving after everyone left, always gone before most people arrived. She'd passed him in the hallways during her late nights, always offering a warm smile and a "good evening, Miss Chen," while most executives treated maintenance staff as invisible furniture. Victoria had always acknowledged him. It was one of the few remnants of her humanity that success hadn't stripped away. "No, it's fine," she heard herself say. "Come in. I should probably head home anyway." But she didn't move. Marcus entered quietly, beginning to empty her trash can. The silence stretched between them until he spoke. "Rough day?" The question, so simple and genuinely asked, cracked something inside her. "Rough 6 months," she admitted. "The company's failing, Marcus. In 3 days, it'll all be over." He nodded slowly, continuing his work. Most people would have offered platitudes or awkward sympathy. Marcus just listened. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or the fact that she'd been performing strength for so long that she'd forgotten how to put it down. But Victoria found herself talking. She told him everything: the breach, the lawsuits, the experts, the failed solutions. Words poured out in a torrent she couldn't control. When she finished, Marcus had completed his cleaning but hadn't left. He stood there holding his cart, considering her with those thoughtful eyes. "Can I tell you something, Ms. Chen? You can tell me it's not my place. I'm just the janitor." "You're not just anything," Victoria said, surprising herself with the vehemence. "Please, what is it?" Marcus leaned against his cart, choosing his words carefully. "I've been cleaning offices for 40 years. I've seen a lot of smart people solve a lot of complicated problems. And you know what I've noticed? The smartest people sometimes forget the simplest solutions because they're too busy looking for complicated ones." Victoria frowned. "I don't understand. All those experts you hired, they're smart people, right? They know crisis management, public relations, technology. But here's what I wonder. Did any of them tell you to talk to your customers?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Victoria blinked. "Talk to our customers? Not surveys or focus groups or data analysis," Marcus continued. "I mean, really talk to them. The people whose trust you lost. Did you ask them what they need to trust you again? Not what the data says they need, but what they actually need." Victoria opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. In 6 months of crisis management, through dozens of meetings with expensive consultants, no one had suggested that. It seemed too simple, almost embarrassingly so. The experts said we needed to rebuild our brand image through strategic communications campaigns. "Maybe," Marcus said gently. "But I remember when my daughter's car broke down at that mechanic shop downtown. The owner had fancy equipment, impressive certifications on the wall. But when she asked him what was wrong, he used all this technical jargon she didn't understand. Made her feel stupid for asking questions. Then she found this other mechanic, older guy with a smaller shop. He took the time to explain everything in plain language. Showed her the problem, talked through the options. Same problem, same fix. But she trusted him because he treated her like a person, not a transaction." He paused, then added, "Sometimes people don't need a perfect solution. They need to know you see them, that you care, that you're human too. That's what builds trust." The words settled over Victoria like snow, quiet but transformative. She'd been so focused on fixing the technical problem, on crafting the perfect corporate response, that she'd forgotten the human element. Her customers weren't just data points or potential lawsuits. They were people who felt betrayed, scared, and ignored. "How would I even start?" she asked, her voice small. Marcus smiled. "The same way we're talking now, honestly, without a script. The transformation." That night, Victoria didn't sleep. Instead, she sat at her home office computer and started writing. Not a corporate statement crafted by PR teams, but a personal letter. She wrote about her failures, her fear, and her commitment to making things right. She admitted she didn't have all the answers, but wanted to find them together. At 3 in the morning, she published it as a video on the company website. Just her, sitting in her office, speaking from the heart. Then she did something her lawyers had explicitly forbidden. She started reaching out to affected customers directly. Personal emails, phone calls, even video chats. Some hung up on her. Many were angry. But she listened. She apologized. She asked them what they needed. And slowly something shifted. One customer, a small business owner named James, told her he didn't care about compensation. He just wanted to know his data was secure now and that Chen Dynamics understood the panic he'd felt when the breach happened. Another customer, a teacher named Sarah, said she'd stuck with their software through the crisis because she remembered Victoria's speech at a tech conference about making technology accessible to educators. "That person I saw on stage," Sarah said. "She cared about people." "Where did she go?" Victoria had no answer except, "I lost her somewhere along the way, but I'm trying to find her again." The board meeting was a war zone. The investors wanted her head. The liquidation seemed inevitable. But Victoria asked for 15 minutes to present an alternative. She showed them the responses she'd received, hundreds of emails, messages, and calls from customers who were willing to give Chen Dynamics another chance. Not because of strategic communications campaigns, but because someone finally listened to them. "Our experts gave us sophisticated solutions to a complex problem," Victoria said. "But we forgot the simplest truth. Our business is built on human trust, and you rebuild human trust through human connection. I've spent the last 72 hours talking to the people we failed. They're willing to work with us if we're willing to work with them, not as a corporation to consumers, but as people to people." She proposed a radical transparency initiative, regular town halls with customers, a customer advisory board with real decision-making power, and a commitment to plain language communication about security measures. It was risky and unprecedented. Several board members called it corporate suicide. But 3 board members, the ones who'd been with Victoria since the beginning, voted to give her 90 days. It was barely enough time, but it was a chance. The resolution. 4 months later, Chen Dynamics wasn't just surviving, it was transforming. The Transparency Initiative had become a model other companies were studying. Customer retention had climbed to 82%. New clients were signing on, attracted by a company that treated them like partners rather than transactions. The tech press, which had written Chen Dynamics' obituary, now featured them as a case study in crisis recovery through authentic leadership. Victoria found Marcus in the break room one evening preparing his cleaning cart. She'd been looking for him for days. "Do you have a minute?" she asked. "Of course, Miss Chen. I wanted to thank you," she said. "That conversation we had in my office, you saved this company." Marcus shook his head gently. "No, ma'am. You saved it. I just reminded you of something you already knew but had forgotten." "Maybe," Victoria said. "But sometimes the most important thing someone can do is remind us of who we are when we've lost ourselves." She handed him an envelope. "I'd like you to join our customer advisory board. You have insights most people with fancy degrees miss. Plus, it comes with a different title. You'd be our chief culture advisor." Marcus looked stunned. "Ms. Chen, I clean floors. I'm not qualified to—" "You're the most qualified person I know," Victoria interrupted. "You see this company in ways I don't. You understand people. And that's what we need." Tears welled in Marcus's eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Victoria smiled. "And Marcus? Call me Victoria." Standing in that break room, Victoria realized the most valuable lesson she'd learned. Success wasn't measured in Forbes covers or stock prices. It was measured in the human connections you maintained, the humility to listen to wisdom regardless of where it came from, and the courage to remember that behind every spreadsheet, every statistic, every corporate strategy, there were people. Real people with real concerns who deserve to be seen. Sometimes the answer to your biggest problem isn't found in the most expensive consultant's presentation. Sometimes it's found in a quiet conversation with someone who sees the world more clearly because they've never stopped seeing people as people. And sometimes the person who saves your empire is the one everyone else overlooked. The night. Janitor with kind eyes who understood that the simplest Truths are often the most profound.